All right. Good evening. We're ready to get started. We are learning Kiddushin Daf Pei Aleph, and we are starting 7 lines or so from the top of Pei Aleph Amid Aleph. Tonight we're going to have a shiur, and tomorrow morning we'll have a shiur at about 7:10. That will be the last blot of the Masechta. On Shabbos, we're going to be learning Baba Kama Daf Beis at 2:50 p.m. We're in a new Masechta. And tomorrow night, of course, if you didn't sign up, you're missing out. A whole bunch of sponsors. Special thank you to all of those people. We'll mention them then. Let's get started. Pei Aleph Amid Aleph, 7 lines down. Says the Gemara, if you're ready for a good start of Musar, yo, Mark, back right corner. Stop talking. Says the Gemara, Rav v'Rav Yehuda. Remember who we were talking about? Rav was one of the greatest and earliest of the Amoraim. Rav v'Rav Yehuda habu ka'azle b'urcha. They were walking on the path. They went for a walk. Have a ka'azla hi itza kamayhu. And there was a woman that was standing in front of them, walking in front of them. Amar le Rav le Rav Yehuda. Rav says to Rav Yehuda, Dal karech mekame Gehenim. Move your feet to get away from Gehenim. The Rishonim explain, this is yichud. 2 men, 1 woman. That's a big problem. Amar le. Wait 1 second. V'hamaru damar b'ksherim shapir dami. But Rav, says Rav Yehuda, you told me that if they're ksherim, that if the men are ksherim, then it's not yichud in a case like this. He says, and skip a couple of words here. Amar le, what? Kigon ana ve'at. Rav says to Rav Yehuda, you think me and you are ksherim? We're prutzim. Okay, that puts all of us in a bad strait. Ella kigon mai. Who then are the people who really are the ksherim? So says the Gemara, kigon Reb Chanina bar Papi v'chaverav. These are the people who are the heilige Yidden, who are really ksherim. They were really, but everybody else is prutzim. I think I can comfortably say we're all prutzim, which also means halacha l'maisa, that when it comes even to a scenario of 1 woman and 2 men, even though the Mishnah says that's mutter, that's only true by ksherim. But by people like us, the prutzim, therefore it's still going to be yichud. Stark, no? It's a good start to the daf tonight. Amar Rav. Rav says, Malkin al yichud. There are malkos in regards to yichud, but ve'ein osrin al hayichud. But we don't have a case scenario where we aser the wife to the husband because of the yichud that she was in. Remnants of Maseches Sota. So we know that she was in yichud, but we don't say that it's as if she slept with someone to the point that asr labal, asr labo. We don't say that. She gets malkos, but she doesn't have an isra on her husband. Amar Avashi lo Amar Nela b'yichud penuya. That's only true when he was alone with a woman who was single. That's when we say that there is going to be malkin ala yichud. Aval b'yichud de'eshes ish lo. But when we're talking about a married woman, we will not give out malkos in that case. Why would we not give out malkos when the woman is married? Says the Gemara, shelo tehei motzi lazal baneha. When you're single, the risk is lower. She doesn't have kids yet. We don't have to worry about people saying mamzerus. But when you're a married woman and somebody says you're b'yichud, and then you have a baby 9 months later, people might say the kid's a mamzer. So therefore, we don't even give the malkos. Mar Zutra argues, third of the way down, Pei Aleph Amid Aleph. Mar Zutra says, no, malki umachriz. Yes, we give the malkos, even to the Eishes Ish, but we're machriz. We make an announcement as to what happened. What does this mean? So Rashi helps us. Rashi is 12 lines down. We're giving her malkos, not because of znus. We're giving her a malkos because of yichud. And that's what the Gemara says we should still punish her. We should still give the yichud. Just say that she didn't do znus. All she did was yichud. Amar le Rav Nachman, mi parhat yel Ravashi, mar name lilki v'lichriz. Why don't you do that? If it's possible to be machriz, to say what it's for, so that no one will have any rumors about her children, do it. Says the Gemara, Amar le, ika deshama beha, velo shama beha. The good piece of lashon hara. You only tell the first half of it. Did you hear that so and so got malkos for yichud? And you leave out the part of the story that it wasn't for znus; it was only for yichud. So therefore, he says no malkos at all for a married woman. Amar Rav. Rav says malkin al lo tova hashmua. We get malkos for things that are not good. What does this mean? Rashi 15 lines down, Dibra Mastil al Lotova Shmua, Mishayotse Kol Alav Shu over Averos Malkinoso, to Lotova Shmua Lavhu. This is an Isser. The fact that you're known as a person who does Averas, you are Chayiv Malkos for that. Unbelievable. Says the Gemara, how do we know? Shnei Amar, the Pasuk says, Al Banai, don't do this, my sons. A language of Lav. Don't do this, my sons. Don't do Averas. Kilo Tova Hashmua, because the rumors aren't good. The language of Al Banai is a language of Lav. When people know you to be an Avarian, they know that you're a Bal Avera, you get Malkos for that. Mar Zutra, when he would give these Malkos, Osivla Afsira, he would put like the reins of an animal on top of him, Al Kasva, in his shoulders, Umakri Le Al Banai. And he would say, don't do this. Don't do this. You should not be doing this behavior. You need to be a Fruma Yid. You can't be doing Averas. All right. Let's get into some of the very halacha l'maisa exclusions to yichud. We know that yichud has some exceptions to the rule. What are they? The Gemara says 8 lines or so before the wide lines, middle of the page, Pei Aleph Amar Aleph. Amar Rabba Baila Be'ir. If a woman is alone with a man, but her husband is in the city, Ein Choshishin Mishum Yichud. Mutter. No problem. If my wife is working from home and there's someone working in the house, and it's just the two of them, that's not the Isser of Yichud if I'm in town, because I could come home at any point. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, Pesach Pasuach L'Reshus Harabim Ein Choshishin Mishum Yichud. That if you have a door open to the public, the halacha is that's also not Yichud. So I'll tell you what this does not mean. This does not mean if your door is open, but you're upstairs in a bedroom. No, that's yichud. That's nisur d'oraisa. That's totally not allowed. What we mean by that is that you're able to be seen by the Reshus Harabim. So in scenarios that I've been in where someone's in my house, I open all the windows in the front of my house and I sit there. That's Pesach Pasuach Reshus Harabim. That's a heter. Your door just being open a crack is not a p'tur and yichud. You're totally still alone. And the average person doesn't walk into your house. Let's continue. When it comes to Pesach, Pasuach L'Reshus Harabim, Ein Choshishin Mishum Yichud. The Gemara tells a story. Rabbi Ikla Lebei Rav Yosef. Rabbi went to the home of Rav Yosef. Basar de Karach Rifta, after they broke bread, after they had a meal, Omar Lahu Shkulu Darga Mituse Bibi. Don't let there even be a ladder. Don't even let there be access from Bibi to my wife. Says the Gemara, why would that be? The Omar Rabba Baila Be'ir. Who cares if Bibi has access to the wife? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Baila Be'ir. The husband is in the same house. The Gemara says, because Shiny Rabibi, this is such an important yesod in the world of Hilchos Yichud. Shiny Rabibi, Dishushvinte Havoi, V'gaisabe. Rabibi knew Rav Yosef's wife. They grew up together in whatever school they went to as little kids. They were in cheder together, wherever. They knew each other and they had a kesher. This is a din halacha l'maisa. If you work in an office with a woman who you're not married to, but you work with her daily, the poskim say she is what we call libo gaspa. You have a stronger relationship with her. May not be inappropriate, but the mitzias of the fact that you see her every day means you're more bonded. Therefore, the rules of yichud are more stark. They're more strict. They're not regular hilchos yichud of you and someone you don't know. That's libo gaspa. And Rabibi knew Rav Yosef's wife, libo gaspa. The rules were more strict. Rabbi Friedman put out a kuntris. We have it over there. The halachos of yichud. You should read it, especially for the workplace. Very, very important piece of work. The Gemara gives a case scenario. Last of the short lines. The last 2 lines of the short lines. Amar of Kahana. Anashim mi bachutz. If there's 2 rooms, the men are in the outer room. The nashim mi bifnim, and women are in the innermost room. So, ein choshishin mishum yichud. No problem at all. But if anashim mi bifnim, and the only way that they can get out is the nashim mi bachutz, is if they have to walk through the outer room that has women in that room, choshishin mishum yichud. That's approach number 1. However, the Brisa quotes this the opposite way. V'masnisa tana ipcha. We see this reversed. So the Gemara says, Amar Abai Hashta the Amar of Kahana Hachi. The Tana Masnisa Ipcha, Ana Na'avi the Chumra. I'm going to be makbid on both cases. A very uncommon practice to just straight up be makbid. But what are we dealing with? We're dealing with yichud. We have to be extremely careful about these things, and therefore he was makbid on both. Abaye Dayer Gulfi. Abaye, whenever there was a shiur that was given for both men and women, he would put something in between them. He would put like little things of pottery as like the mechitza, so that if anybody bumped into it, it would make a lot of noise and draw a lot of attention. Everyone would know that you went to go talk to the ladies' side. Unacceptable. So Galfi, he would put up these kinds of dividers that were made out of pottery. Rava Dayer Kana, he would put reeds there. The leaves would rustle if you would get near them. Also an indicator that you're moving too close to the mechitza. Amar Abaye Sakva Deshata, the most dangerous time of the year as it relates to Isuri Avera and Yichud. Rigla, it's Yontif. It's a little bit of a more levity time. People are more likely to misbehave. Think Simchas Torah, the chaos of Simchas Torah. All of a sudden, you're talking to someone at length that maybe you shouldn't be talking to. The Gemara says that by them, Sakva Deshata, the most dangerous time of year, was the regel was Yontif. Hanach Shavyusa de Asoy L'Naharda. How amazing is it that on the night that we're doing Mishmar Le'Artseinu, the Gemara speaks about a case of Shavuyim, speaks about a case of people who were captives that were just redeemed. Unbelievable. Says the Gemara, Hanach Shavyusa de Asoy L'Naharda. And you know what they did with these people? They had just gotten out of where they were. Askinhu lebei Rav Amram Chasida. They put them in the house of Rav Amram Chasida, but they were women. So the Gemara says, Ashkulu darga mikamayu. They were put up in the attic in a private space for them to be on their own. And while they were up there at night, while they were sleeping, he took the ladder away. Ashkulu darga mikamayu. He took away the ladder so that he would remove his own Yetzer Hara from being tempted to go schmooze with them and possibly be involved in an Avera. We're talking about Rav Amram Chasida. His last name is Chasida. This is a Chashuv Yid. Don't ever let yourself be fooled that you're above these things. No one is above these things. We have to be super makbid. Look at what happened to Rav Amram Chasida. Ashkulu darga mikamayu. He took away the ladder. As one of them was walking upstairs, there was a little bit of an opening in the floor. Nafal nahora be'ipuma. There was a beacon of light that shone on one of the women's faces. Instantly, Yetzer Hara kicks in. Shakle Rav Amram Ledarga. Rav Amram picks up the ladder. But there was something unique about this ladder. It was a ladder Delohavu Yachlin Be'asar Lemidlia. 10 people couldn't even pick up the ladder. All of a sudden, with the Yetzer Hara, this guy bench pressing far more than his norm. Picks up the ladder, puts it in place. Dalia Lefude picked it up by himself. Salik va'ozil, he starts climbing up the ladder to be with these women. Kimata lepal gadarga, he gets halfway up the ladder, and the Gemara says 2/3 of the way down, ifshach. He planted his feet shoulder width apart, and he stands there and he starts to think. Halfway up the ladder, Ramakala, he raised his voice and said, Nura be'amram. There's the fire in the house of Amram. Famous story where one of the Amoraim says, there's a fire in my house. Says the Gemara, Asu Rabban, and oh my gosh, there's a fire. Everybody runs in with buckets of water. They're ready to take care of him. And they see that Rav Amram Chasida is standing on a ladder and there's no fire. So Amrullah, they said, Kasif Tinan, you're an embarrassment. What is going on here? Amar Lehu, says Rav Amram Chasida, Mutab, it's better. Tichsufu be'amram be'alma hadain. I'd rather be an embarrassment in this world. Below tichsufu minei la'alma de'asi. The lengths to which we go to avoid an avera, he calls out, fire, fire, fire. Somebody please come help me. And he called it out. Says the Gemara, Ashbe'e the yinpak mine. He and the Yetzer Hara had a little bit of a conversation. He convinced the Yetzer Hara to leave him, and says the Gemara, Nafak minei ki amuda denura. When the Yetzer Hara left Rav Amram Chasida's body, it did so as a pillar of flame. You can imagine the imagery. These people are not. We're nowhere near these people, and we're the motivated crew. Look around you. We're the motivated crew. We're nowhere near these people. A flame of fire exited his body. Omar Lei, Rav Amram Chasida says, Chazi de'at nura ve'ona bisra. You're fire and I'm flesh. Ve'ona adifna minach. I'm better than you. Says Rav Amram Chasida because he beat his Yetzer Hara. Rav Meir hava mislotes be'ovre avera. Rav Meir, the great Tana, He used to, what is wrong with you crazy people who do Averas? You're messed up in the head. Who in their right mind would ever do an Avera? So the Gemara says, Yom Echad, one day, Idmele Satan ki itza behach gisa denara. The Yetzer Hara shows up as a beautiful woman on the other side of the river. Lo have a mavra. There was no bridge. There was no way for him to get across the river. So Nakat Mitzra v'ka'avar. He took a rope and he started pulling himself across the river with a rope. Kimata Palga Mitzra Shavke. When he was halfway through the river, Shavke, the Yetzer Hara, left him, and then he realized what he was doing. He was standing halfway in a river, sopping wet to get across the river to violate the river. But when the Yetzer Hara disappeared, he saw how crazy he looked. Omar, the Yetzer Hara says to Rav Meir, Ilav de kamachris berakia. If not for the fact that up in heaven they say about you, Kizaru Rav Meir v'Toraso, we, the negative angels, cannot touch Rav Meir and his Torah. Shavise lidmach tarte mo'e. I would have turned you into 2 cheap coins. Nothing. I would have turned you into a shmata. Don't be so quick to judge people who do Averas, Rav Meir. You have a Yetzer Hara too. And similarly, 3/4 of the way down, 11, 12 lines from the bottom. Rabbi Akiva have a mitzlotzeitz over Avera. Rabbi Akiva too, he's like, I don't understand. How could you do an Avera? How could you do that? The Gemara tells a story about him too. Yom Echad, one day, Idmile Satan ki itza b'reish dikla. There's the Satan framed himself, created an image of himself as a woman in the top at the top of a tree, something along those lines. Nakte ladikla the kasalik v'azil. So no problem. The guy starts climbing the tree. No problem. This is Rabbi Akiva. Okay? In his frum mode, he's chasing this woman now. Kimata lapalge de dikla. Do you see the common denominator of all 3 of these? When did they have their moment of reflection? Halfway on the way to the Avera. There's got to be something going on here. Our brains have a check-in when we're about to do something wrong. There is a moment of return in the midst of a Yetzer Hara to say, wait, this is not a good idea. And I think we're all somewhat familiar with these moments of clarity. Whatever the Avera may be, it could be simple, it could be great. But there's a moment of clarity, a flashpoint of, wait 1 second, I should not be doing this. The Tanoim tapped in and capitalized. So that's a musar for us as well. What happened to Rabbi Akiva in this case? Says the Gemara, Omar, Kimata lepalge dedikla, halfway up the tree, Shavke, his Yetzer Hara left him, and then he saw how crazy he was. Rabbi Akiva himself, how crazy he was. Omar, ilav de michrazei berakia. If not for the fact that in the heavens they say about you, Rabbi Akiva, Hizaru Rabbi Akiva v'Toraso, be careful. Nobody touch Rabbi Akiva in his Torah. Says the Gemara, Shavise l'dmach tarte mai. I would have diminished you down to a couple of pennies. You would have been worthless, like any other person. No big deal. The Yetzer Hara can beat anyone. Famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Al tamin be'atzmecha ad yom moscha. Do not trust yourself. Anyone can fail. It doesn't matter who we are. We can all fail. That's why we have to learn Musar b'chulei b'chulei. Says the Gemara, Plimo. Plimo is also a Tana. The Gemara says, have a ragil l'meimar kol yoma. Every day to be mechazik himself, he would say, Gira be'ene de Satan. Put an arrow in the eye of the Satan. Uh-oh. What's coming now? Yom Echad, one day, 5 lines from the bottom. Male Yoma de Kippura Hava. It was Erev Yom Kippur, a mitzvah to eat. Kol ha-mis'ane b'tshi ki'ilu, mis'ane, kol ha-ochel b'tshi ki'ilu, mis'ane b'tshi v'asiri. Mitzvah d'oraisa to eat. Says the Gemara, eat milei ke'anya. He showed up like a poor person at the door of Plimo. Asa kara abava. He knocks on the door. Plimo, I'm an ani. Please help me. Afiku le rifta, no problem. Here you go. Here's a loaf of bread. Amar le yoma ki ha'idna. Kule alma gavoy ve'ana basrai. A day like today, everybody's inside sitting at the table eating. You've left me outside, sitting on the chair outside your house. It's not right. Bring me inside. So he does. Plimu responds in kind. I lay the kribule rifta. You're right. Come into my house and have bread. So he's sitting on the couch in the dining room while the family eats. And the Yetzer Hara, again, framed as an ani, says as follows. Amar lei Yom Ki'idna, a day like today, Erev Yom Kippur, Kule Alma Ataka v'ana lechudai. Everybody in your family sitting at the table. You've got me sitting in the kitchen. Bring me into the dining room with everybody else. Says the Gemara. Plimo responds in kind. He says, Asyuhu osvuhu ataka. You're right, 100%. Come take a seat. You're right. I should have put you there in the first place. Have a Yasiv, Nafshe Shichna V'kibi Ale. All of a sudden, his body gets covered in boils. Gross, disgusting presentation. He was doing things that were inappropriate, that were disgusting, things that were just gross. Amrulay, and he said, Plimo says to the Yetzer Hara, Tiv Shapir, sit nicely. In the home that I grew up in with two Southern parents, put your left elbow in your lap and eat your soup with your right hand. No plastic bottles on the table. Tiv Shapir, sit like a mensch. What's wrong with you? Stop being weird at the table. You're my guest. You're a poor person. Be normal. This is Musar. So Plimo says to Yisrael, Amar Le, Havuli Kasa. Can you do me a favor? The poor guy says to Plimo, give me a cup of wine. He says, we're going to go to the mission on the top of Pei Beis. One more big amud. We've got enough time till Ma'ariv. Yavule Kasa gave him a cup of wine. Ichmar, the poor person coughs. Shada Bei Kicho, and he spits phlegm into the cup. Nachru Bei, Plimo, he calls him, come on, what are you doing? You're in my house. Act normal. Shaka Umis, the guy dies in his house. Again, it's the Yetzer Hara looking like an ani. The guy kicks, he drops to the ground. And then Shamu Dahabu Ka'amre, Plimu Katal Gabra, word spreads like wildfire. Plimu killed one of his guests. Sure enough, there's seemingly a dead man lying on his dining room floor. So what did Plimo do? Araki ran away. The Tasha Nafshe Bevesakise. He ran into a place, a bathroom. He ran away to try to hide. And then Ozal Basrei, the Yetzer Hara, followed him yet again. And Nafal Kamein fell again and tried to pretend like he was dying yet again. When the Yetzer Hara saw that Plimo was really suffering, Galile Nafshe, the Yetzer Hara revealed himself properly to Plimo to show that all of this whole episode was a test. Amar Le, my time Amris Hachi. Why do you use this language of Gira be'ene de Satan, of putting an arrow in my eye? So Plimo's like, that's what I thought you should do. The Elahechi Ema. What would be the right thing to say? Says the Gemara, and let us take a lesson from here. Amar Le, Leimamar, what you should say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Rachmana Ligar Bei the Satan. Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, fight the Satan. We say this in Hineni. The Sigar bis Satan Leval Yastineni. We have this language already in certain places. We should implement it throughout our lives. Next, first of the long lines, Pei Aleph Amud Beis. Reb Chia Bar Ashi have a ragil. Reb Chia Bar Ashi had made a custom. Kol Idan to have a nafa le'ape. Whenever he was going to say Nefila Sapayim, Tachanun, Omar, he would add in Harachamon Yatzilenu Miyetzer Hara. We should add that Harachamon into benching. That's beautiful. We actually do say it in the mornings. There we also talk about the Yetzer Hara. Yom Echad, one day, the Gemara says that while he was davening, while Rav Chia Bar Ashi was davening at home, he was saying Tachanun, and he davened of Yatzilenu Miyetzer Hara. And Shamatinu Debisu, his wife heard him davening to save him from the Yetzer Hara. Amra, she said to herself, Michti, that's odd. Hakama Shani de Parish Leminai. My husband has withheld himself from me for years, meaning they hadn't had Tashmish Amita in a long time. My husband has a Yetzer Hara? I had no idea. I thought he was above all things physical. I had no idea. So says the Gemara, my taima ka'amar hachi. Why is it that he said that? So says the Gemara, Yom Achada, one day, Hava Kagaris Beginte. He was learning in his yard in the back. He's got a nice little chair, sitting under an umbrella, sitting and learning. The Gemara says, Kashta Nafsha, she dressed herself up in her finest garments. Chalfa Vitanya Kame, she crossed over him, meaning she walked back and forth past him to catch his attention, wearing makeup, put on her finest outfit. Amar Le, Amar La, the husband says to the wife, Man at, who are you? Huh? Yeah. Kashta is kishutim. Is that correct? Rashi says both. Rashi says that she wore tachshitim and besamim. Either way, for whatever reason, did he smell her or did he see her? He said man'at and Amra ana charusa. She was a zona. This woman charusa was a zona, wasn't his wife. It's another woman who happened to be a zona. She said, "I am charusa." She was seeing if her husband had a Sahara. And Dahadri Miyoma, I just got back. I was out of town. I just got back, and Tava Neba, this great person, decided to be Toveya Charusa, really his wife, but who he thought was Charusa for Tashma Shemitah. Amar Lei, she said to him, I see Nehale Lahach Rumna Duresh Tzutzisa. Before that, you have to go get me a rimon from the tree. You have to go up on the tree and pluck a rimon. Shavar, he jumped up, Ozal Aisinele, no problem. Jumped up and got the, he went from learning a Daf Gemara to being Toveya Zona in 1 second. The Yetzer Hara is very powerful. We have to be more strategic. Says the Gemara, what? Okay, so says the Gemara, Ki asa lebese, later he went inside, and then the Gemara says, have a kashagra debisu tenura. His wife was warming up the oven. She had put in wood at the bottom. She lit the fire. Things were heating up. Salig b'kayasiv b'gavei. He was so upset at himself that he went and sat in the oven himself. Says the Gemara, Amar le my hai. What's the deal? Why are you sitting in an oven? Amar la hachi v'hachi havamaisa. I did something wrong. I was toveya charusa v'zona. Amar le, she said, no, ana havoi. That was me. That wasn't her. Says the Gemara, lo ashkach, but he didn't even believe her. He thought she was just calming him down. Could you imagine the dynamic here? He goes in and says, I was just with a Zona. She said, no, it was me. He said, I don't believe you. I think it was the Zona. She says, no, it was me. Until Adi Yavala Simane. Horrendously complicated dialogue emotionally. Nevertheless, Amarla, he said to her, Ana miha li'isura ichavne. Maybe in the end I didn't do anything wrong because halacha l'maisa, you're my wife. But my ritzonos were wrong. I had kavana to do an avera. And says the Gemara, Kol Yomav Shel Oso Tzaddik. By the way, this is a guy who didn't do an Avera, but wanted to. For the rest of his life, Hayamisana, he would fast regularly, ad Shemes Be'oso Misa, until he died from fasting. Where do we see precedence from this? A third of the way down to Tanya. Isha Hafiram V'Hashem Yislach La. What is going on over here where a woman gets slicha? Says the Gemara, B'ma Kasuv Medaber. What was the pasuk talking about? Be'isha shenadra b'nazir. A woman made a neder to become a nazira. V'shama ba'ila v'haferla. Her husband heard about it, and within the appropriate time frame, he's mefer her neder. She said she wants to be a nazira. She's no longer a nazira, except for one thing. V'hi lo yada. She did not know that her husband was mefer. V'hi lo yada shefer labayla. And then what did she do? V'haisa shosa yain u'metama l'mesim. She drank a barrel of wine when she thought she was a nazira. She was wrong. She wasn't a Nazira, but she thought she was. And what did the pasuk say? She needs slicha. So we see that if really you didn't do an Avera, but you thought you did, you still need slicha. So Reb Chia Bar Ashi, even though he really slept with his wife, Afal Pikein, he was miskaven la'Avera. So Hitaka did need slicha. The Gemara continues a third of the way down. Rabbi Akiva, every time Rabbi Akiva would get to this pasuk, he would cry. Omar, he would say, if a person had intended to eat basar chazir, and he ended up eating the basar of a tzleh, the flesh of a kosher animal, a sheep or a goat, and there Amra Torah tzarech kapara uslicha, if that's true, that even when you're not doing anything wrong, but you only intended to do something wrong, but you didn't, there you need slicha. If you need slicha for intent, how much more so do you need slicha for actually doing something wrong? It's a big problem. We have a similar marimako. Similarly, the pasuk there says the same thing. He did not know, he did something wrong, he still carries the sin. Similarly, with the same svara. A man had intended on eating something usher, fats that were usher, and he ended up eating something mutter. Amra Torah v'lo yada v'ashem nasa avono. There you're still a sinner. So then Mishnah is kavan lechol chelev v'alav v'yadav chelev alachas kama v'kama. Same exact thing with a different pasuk. Isi ben Yehuda Omer v'lo yada v'ashem v'nasa avono. What does he say about this pasuk? Al kol davar zeyidavu kol hadivuyim. This is where people should have very heavy feelings, because we do things that are actually wrong. We intend to do things wrong, and we do things wrong. And if we need kapara for when we intend to do things wrong and don't even do things wrong, all the more so for when we do things wrong. At the 2 dots halfway down, 12 minutes, and still got a thick half an hour to go. Let's go. Misyached adam im imo. A man is allowed to be in yichud with his mother. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rabasi, misyached adam im acho. So a man is allowed to be in yichud with his sister. The dar im imo ve'im bito, and he can even live in the same house as his mother and with his daughter. Ki amra kamei de Shmuel. Shmuel said, "Wait 1 second, I disagree." Amar aser li siached im kol harayos shebetorah ve'afilu im behema. No yichud with anyone you're not allowed to sleep with. No yichud. That's what the Gemara says. Says the Gemara, wait 1 second. It's not. What about the Mishnah? You're not allowed to sleep with them. So how can you tell me that you have to be usher from everyone? The Mishnah says openly to you to the Shmuel. For sure, Shmuel's wrong. Can't be your usher from everyone. Says the Gemara, Amar Lach Shmuel, almost 2/3 of the way down. According to your question, we have a problem with another thing. Hadatanya, the Brisa writes, you can only be alone with your sister, with your mother-in-law, and with any of the aroused with Eidim. What does that imply? Be'edim in, but shelo be'edim lo. When do we say you can be alone with your sister? When do we say you can be alone with your mother-in-law, with whoever, with your mother, anybody? That's with Eidim. But without Eidim, it seems from Shmuel there will be an Isser Yichud. Ella, it must be that there are 2 different shitas Tanaihi. The Tanya, the Brisa writes, Amar Rab Meir, Hizaru bi mipnei biti. This is crazy town. Rab Meir says, don't let me be alone with my daughter. Amar Rab Tarfon, Hizaru bi mipnei kalasi. Save me from my daughter-in-law. More understandable than a daughter, but nevertheless true. Ligle galav oso talmid. Somebody laughed at him and said, what are you talking about? Your daughter-in-law? You're worried about that relationship? Says the Gemara. It wasn't that long after that student made that comment. And then he slipped up and slept with his mother-in-law. Gotta be careful. The Yetzer Hara is stark. We need to make sure that we are in charge. The same language that we saw on the earlier page. Ani bisra ve'at nahar. What was the language? I don't remember in Hebrew. You're fire and I am flesh and I beat you. Ana adifna mina. Let's continue. Says the Gemara, afilu im behema. And the Torah from the Gemara, it seems to be that one cannot be alone even with an animal, because the pasuk says that there's an isser of revia, there's an isser of bestiality. So then there should be an isser yichud. Who cares if it's an ish or if it's an animal? Until this daf, most of us would never have thought of that. But lemaisa, when you think about it halachically, yeah, there should be the same restrictions. Abaye michlele mikula dabra. When he was outside, he would clear the field of all the animals. Rav Sheshes ma'aver la mitzvah. He'd make sure the animals were outside the border. Rav Chanan minarda ikol Rav Kahana lefum nara. He went to go see Rav Kahana by the opening of the river. Chazye, he saw him. The yasi v'kagaras v'kaima behema kamei. He was sitting there learning a daf Gemara, and there was an animal sitting right next to him. So he says to him, Omar le lo savar lamara fidulim behema. Don't you hold the Isra of Yichud applies with the behema as well? Says the Gemara, Amar le, I was engrossed in my learning. Halavai, we should be so stark. We didn't even see that there was a cow sitting next to you. Unbelievable. Says the Gemara, you're 100% right. I didn't see. From the conclusion of the Gemara, it seems you're not allowed to be alone with an animal. I'm just quoting. I'm not a Shulchan Aruch, I'm not a posek. That's what it seems from the Gemara. Amar Rava, Misyached Adam, there is no Isra Yichud. You can be alone with Im Shtei Yevamos because they are competitors. Im Shtei Tzoros, 2 co-wives because they are competitors. Im Isha Bechamosa, a woman and the man's mother-in-law. Those 2 people also are competitors. No Isra Yichud. Im isha ubas baila, with a woman and the daughter of the husband. Im isha betinokes sheodas tambia, with a woman and a daughter who knows about bia, who knows what it is. Even though ve'ein moseres atzma labia, even though she would never let herself do that. Let's say she's in the young teen age. She may know that there's a thing of intimacy. She may know about it, but she's not drawn into it yet. At the 2 dots, we had said higdilu, that once someone gets old enough that a father cannot sleep unclothed with a child, not in an intimate way, not in a sexual way, but they can't even share a bed anymore. They have to wear clothes now. Pikama, what's the age? This is a machlokes, 2 versions. Version number 1, 10, 12 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Ada bar Rav Aza, Amar Ravasi, Tinokes, Bas Teisha Shanim Yom Echad, for a girl, it's 9 years and a day. Tinok for boys, ben Shteimeser Shanim Yom Echad. Iga de Amre, not that way. Tinokes Bas Shteimeser Shanim Yom Echad. Tinok ben Shloshesher Yom Echad. But it's not regular rules of, for example, when Tashmish Amita is valid. It's just once they're of a certain developmental age. Vizeh vizeh, in both cases, when we say that there's a restriction, it's only when their bodies are starting to develop. Says the Gemara, vizeh vizeh, when a woman begins to grow breasts, and when there's sarech tzamech, when there starts to be some pubic hair, some seyar, that's what we're talking about. That's when the kiruv basar is no longer acceptable. Amar Rafram bar Papa Amar Rav Chizda lo shanu ela she'ena bu shalamo lefanav aruma. He's adding in another parameter. When do we say kiruv basar is allowed? When the child is clueless. They still walk around the house without clothes on. They don't even realize that there's anything wrong with it. Totally clueless. But aval bo shalamo lefanav aruma. But once a girl's brain turns from I'm a little girl and I'm willing to walk around unclothed with my family to I'm only going to walk around clothed, then usher. There is an age where this happens, where young girls will go from I'll change in front of you to I will only change in my door with the door locked while I'm in the closet with the lights on. And it's a very sharp transition. So the Gemara says that age is the age where there's a heker of what's going on. That's the age where we should qualify. My taima. Why is it that we use this age? It means that Yetzer Albasha, she's beginning to realize that her body is not just body, but it's also representative of something more intimate. Rav Acha bar Abba, 6-7 lines from the bottom of the page. Ikla lebei Rav Chizda chasne, went to the home of the son-in-law. Shakle lebas berate, he saw that he took his granddaughter. Osvua bekanfe, and he had his daughter under a blanket. They were cuddling under a blanket. Grandfather and a granddaughter. Amar le lo savar lamar demekacha. She was already married off. What are you doing? She's already married off. She's arayos to you twice over. Says the Gemara, you are incorrect. Amar le avart loch aderab. He said you misunderstood. The Amar Rabbi Huda Amar Rabbi Tema Rabbi Elazar. Also the Adam shekadesh is bito. This marriage is a sham. She's too young. Why are they not married? You cannot marry off your daughter. She needs to be able to verbalize and say, I want to marry that person. And if she can't say that, even though the father is the sole person responsible for marrying her off, it doesn't matter. It needs to be the case that she can verbalize, I want to marry this person. Marnami overlay de Shmuel, you also violated the halach of Shmuel. Damar Shmuel ein mishtamshin beisha. Doesn't matter. You're the grandfather. You still can't sit under the blanket with your daughter. You can't be mishtamish with an isha. Amar le ana kiidach the Shmuel svirale. And with this shita we will close. I hold like another shita of Shmuel to Amar. Shmuel, he says, Akol l'shem shamayim. It depends what's going on. What does it mean l'shem shamayim? Rashi explains in full. Oh, it's only 2 lines. We have time. Rashi says, top of paid beis amad aleph. Dibra masal l'kol l'shem shamayim. Vein daiti acharel l'chibas ishus. I'm not sitting with my granddaughter for ishus purposes. Ela l'chibas kurba, just so that she feels close to me. V'lasos koras ruach le'ima, to my daughter. My daughter should know that I love her child, my grandchild. And therefore, when I'm nice to my granddaughter, then my daughter knows how much I love even my daughter. The generations have turned a little bit. Our brains are different. We'll stop right here. Tomorrow morning at about 7:10, we'll learn the last blot in Maseches, Kiddushin, and Seder Moed. Wishing you all a beautiful night.